As Ukraine marks 1 year since the pro-EU protests which brought down former President and Kremlin ally Viktor Yanukovych, the country is reflecting on the key moments of the demonstrations and on the people who made them happen. Among the crucial actors were Ukraine's doctors, who were with the protesters on Kyiv's Independence Square from the very beginning. When the security services began their bloody crackdown on the peaceful demonstrators, doctors organized operating theaters right on the square. Kyiv doctor Valery Zalevsky was at the protest when they turned violent. He says he took care of one activist, Yuri, who was evacuating the wounded. As Valery was to find out, Yuri was himself injured but did not pay any attention. He had a bullet wound near the subclavian artery. It was as thick as a finger and stuck in soft tissue. If it had damaged anything there, we wouldn't have saved him. Throughout January and February 2014, dozens of field hospitals were set up in the center of Kyiv. Doctors from across the country converged on the Ukrainian capital to aid in the protest movement. Wounded protesters, meanwhile, were evacuated to hospitals in other Ukrainian cities. The doctors, paramedics and nurses on the Maidan numbered at least 1,500. Some would hide demonstrators from the police, and even as they came under fire from the security forces, they continued to help both sides in the clashes. It was the most cynical case when our volunteer was helping someone lying on the ground and he was shot 3 times. Some policemen damaged a medical station and tore away the white flag with a red cross. They said it would be a trophy. Some 30 doctors were wounded during the Euromaidan protests. Tatiana, a nurse, helped to evacuate injured demonstrators and says she would bandage wounds under fire. We would go to the wounded while snipers were firing. We weren't afraid. Many of those whose lives were saved by Tatiana went on to join the Aidar battalion, which has been fighting in East Ukraine against the Russian-backed insurgency, which began in the wake of the Euromaidan protests. Tatiana also went to fight. She, like many of the doctors and nurses who were on the Maidan, are now on the front line of the conflict in East Ukraine, treating Ukrainian soldiers.